Look, Mike, I'm not doing this.
Oh, sure, never listen to any of my ideas.
Okay, why would you want to record an episode dressed like X-Men characters?
Because our guest is Jeremy from Days of Future Cast.
Yes, I understand that he's the host of an X-Men themed podcast, but our show is about horror movies. It just makes no sense.
It's just a tribute to his show while he's here to record, okay?
Fine. Tell you what, my costume can be Mystique disguised as me.
Lame, whatever.
I have to say, though, that Wolverine costume is pretty sick.
Right? It should. It cost enough.
Yeah, how did you pay for that?
Oh, I just cleaned out our Patreon account.
What? Mike, that money was for the show.
Yeah, but it was totally worth it. Look, it even has retractable claws.
Oh, okay, that looks really dangerous.
Don't worry, I'm in complete control. Check out my sweet moves.
Yeah, okay. Could you just step back a little?
Oh, yeah.
God, this is making me really uneasy.
Check out my spin move. Whoosh.
Okay, watch out!
Uh-oh. Oh, well, that's not good.
I can see my organs.
Hey guys, I'm here. Are y'all ready to record?
Oh, good, you're here.
What the hell?
Here, you press down on the wound while I call 911.
What happened?
He had an accident totally unrelated to my costume.
I taste copper.
Hang on, man. You're gonna make it. Just hang on.
Okay, help is on the way.
Oh, good. Oh man, that's a sweet Wolverine costume, by the way.
Thanks. Your Emma Frost costume is a bold choice.
Thanks. So many sequins to glue on, so many nipples to hide.
I'm so cold.
Hey, I guess I get to do the intro now. My name is Mike, and this is the Graveyard Shift Horror with Mike and Sheldon.
Sheldon and Mike, you prick.
Shh, save your strength.
Welcome to episode 38 of The Graveyard Shift, where each week we watch a movie from the horror category and break it down into the good, the bad, and sometimes the downright confusing. We'll talk about the plot, some production details, and anything else we think is fun and or relevant. And yes, I said we because nobody wants to work the Graveyard Shift alone. Please say hello to the guy that now has the second most disturbing collection of videotapes I've ever seen, my co-host Mike.
Hey, everybody.
Mike, how are you?
A little worse for wear after this movie, but I'm soldiering on.
Well, that's good, because we need you to soldier on. And I'm glad to say that we actually have some extra company for this recording. Someone has suggested this week's movie, I should say, and he is the host of a little podcast called Days of Future Cast. Please say hello to Jeremy.
Hey, is that my theme music? Am I a wrestler now? Did I get to come into the X-Men animated series intro?
That's right. Sorry, I couldn't...
Thank you guys for having me.
No problem. I couldn't resist, sorry.
That's all right. That's good. I've listened to that version and various other versions of the X-Men animated series a lot of times as I'm editing Days of Future Cast, so no problem whatsoever.
So, for our listeners that may not be familiar with you or your show, why don't you tell everyone what it's all about?
Okay. I do a lot of podcasts. Days of Future Cast is the one that's over on DuckFeed TV, which is a network of funny and interesting podcasts that you probably should be listening to. Days of Future Cast is me and Gary Butterfield, who is a much more popular person than I am, delving into X-Men, the animated series from the 90s. Him and I are roughly the same age. We grew up watching this cartoon. We both have a lot of affection for it. We both are way into the X-Men and like a weird kind of mid-90s when they were very terrible kind of way. And so we decided to do this and kind of, it's not a very serious takedown or anything like that. Like we adore the series, but recognize that it's a cartoon from the 90s and it's it's legitimately bad in some places. So it walks that fine line between we love it that it's so bad and it's so bad because we love it kind of thing. And we goof on it a lot. Gary does a really good Gambit voice. I don't do any voices, but I think I'm pretty funny on that podcast. But Gary's Gambit voice is something to be heard and treasured. And that's really about it. It's in between seasons of the animated series. We covered the X-Men movies. So we've done the first 3 mainline movies. We've done X-Men Origins. When Logan came out, we were both so excited to talk about Logan that we just recorded a podcast about it, because that's the kind of thing you get to do when you have your own podcast, is make those decisions.
Yeah.
Logan is probably easily the best X-Men material we've covered on that podcast so far, besides maybe, I think it beats out X-Men 1 and 2, although those are pretty good movies. So,
No, I have to agree.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty much it for me. I have other podcasts too, but that's kind of the main one, besides Monster of the Week and my other one, Don't Give Up Skeleton.
yeah, check them all out. I recommend all of them. You're definitely bound to find something that you love. So now you recommended this week's movie.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and everybody's about to find out what you're sorry for, because Mike, what have we got in store this week?
Today's episode is, Dude, Where's My Tracking? Because we watched the Poughkeepsie Tapes.
We sure did. If you're not familiar with the Poughkeepsie or the Poughkeepsie, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But anyway, here's a little info. It is a 2007. I was going to say 2017, but no, it is not that fresh. It's a 2007 American documentary-style horror film that basically documents the murders of a fictional serial killer in Poughkeepsie, New York, told through the interviews and footage from a cache of the killer's snuff movies. I couldn't find anything about the budget of this movie, but
$17 is probably about what the budget was.
Pretty much the cost of an old camcorder and whatever they paid for gas for driving around.
A camcorder from the Salvation Army that they got cheap because it was dinged up.
Yeah. One of the things that stood out about this movie when I was looking it up was about the troubled release history. Because it was originally released at the Tribeca Film Festival, and it was supposed to go for a theatrical release, but the production company scrapped it. They decided not to do it because they did not think that it was going to basically make any money. So they decided not to give it a theatrical release. It had a limited video-on-demand release in 2014, but was quickly pulled, and did not become available for home media until July of 2017, when it was released by Scream Factory. So, really, this kind of thing became like had a little bit of a cult following, because there was some leaked copies released online by some unknown people. Got copies of it released online somehow. And so I heard talks of this before, but this is the first time I actually had a chance to watch it. Now, Jeremy, so when it came to deciding for a movie for us to watch, what made you decide to go with this one?
And where are the bodies?
Buried everywhere. I live in Louisiana, so they're all in the swamp. You'll never find them. This is one of those weird movies that like somebody recommended to me. I didn't know anything about it whatsoever. I looked on the internet and I found like an AVI floating on a torrent site somewhere or whatever. It, as you mentioned, it kind of had like this weird cult status of like, oh, it was released and then it got pulled, and oh man, it almost could be real, and like you can almost instantly tell the movie is not in any way real, what's in any way, shape, or form. But it was one of those weird kind of cult hits. So without knowing anything about it, turned off the lights, threw it on the TV, and me and my wife watched it, and we're genuinely creeped out by it. We'll get to some of the bad parts, and there's some definitely bad parts of this movie, but like the actual snuff film parts were so eerie and so weird, and all of the home movie stuff is very creepy. But it's a bad movie, and hardly anybody ever talks about it. And I just wanted to like, it's rare that I get to talk about movies on podcasts, believe it or not. Like I usually end up talking about TV shows or things like that. I like to talk about movies. It just doesn't happen a whole lot. So I was just like, hey, like, you guys have a horror movie podcast. Have you ever heard of this? And Mike, I believe I was talking to you, and you were like, no, I don't think so. What's that? And I was like, oh, we got to do it. And then And then I checked in later, and he told me, like, I said, "What'd you think?" And you were like, "Oh, this is very disturbing." And I was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry."
Yeah, your Mystique costume wasn't the only bold choice.
Yeah. I watched this probably in 2000. It had to be in 2007 or 2008, so very shortly after release. Because I distinctly remember watching it at my house in Arizona, and we moved back to Louisiana in 2009. So it was in between 2007 and 2009. Watching this at a modern point of view in 2018, realizing it has some pretty significant problematic issues, and it does some stuff that it totally does not earn. But at the same time, I think there's something interesting there, and I think that I think it's just kind of a weird and interesting movie for that. Like, there's in no way, shape, or form is it good, and it's kind of hard to watch in some places, but it has a genuine creepiness that a lot of horror movies are lacking for me.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. The few people I know that have seen this, like I know a few people that watched it and had sworn that it was a real documentary. I'm like, no, why would the documentary have actors in the credits? And I actually had to send a couple people some IMDb links to show them that, no, this is fictional, relax. But yeah, you're certainly right about that creepiness, the creepy factor of it. And we're going to go into detail about that. But yeah, it's, and by no means, like you said, no means a good movie, but definitely something different. Like, for lack of a better word, I want to say it was a little refreshing to watch this. Even though I was disturbed by what I was watching, it certainly is something different than the movies we've been watching on the podcast so far.
Now I know what normal people feel like when they watch my horror movies.
Exactly. That's we talked about that in our conversation, some text conversations. It's like, this is how people feel when they're watching some of the movies we actually like. So
I'm not some like weird hipster horror movie guy either. Like I love horror movies. I grew up watching horror movies. I have a lot of memories of like going to the video store and renting like an actual like, tape, bringing it home, and like watching Nightmare on Elm Street that way and getting super scared. I had very permissive grandparents and parents growing up, so they didn't give a shit what I watched. But I don't have like I don't dive deep in like into the movie genre as a whole. Like I just kind of pick and choose what I'm watching. So this isn't me. I promise you, this isn't me like picking the weird cult hit because it's a cult hit or anything. Like it's just something that genuinely creeps me out.
Oh, believe it, Mike and I, we're definitely fans of schlock. Like we don't go for like the super intelligent and underground horror movies. It's like I've got a friend that is really into horror movies, but he'll suggest a horror movie, and it's like, oh, this is like this Scandinavian subtitled movie that I found that, three people has watched. It had a budget of $14, and it was completely shot in someone's basement. But
oh yeah, European horror movies are entirely different levels of messed up.
Yeah,
and it's not just for the gore; it's just like the misogyny that they'll have. Be like, absolutely. wow, those women are like, even if this wasn't a horror movie, this was just a drama, these women are still getting the short shrift.
The only European horror movie I've watched that I can think of in the last few years was Funny Games, the original version of Funny Games, and that was just such a terrifying movie to me. Like, it's a dude who lives in the country without a lot of people around. Like, just
I'll bet.
Yeah, like I live on like 2 acres, right? Like my nearest neighbor is a ways away, and like that movie would make you think like, let me go check my gun. Let me go make sure my gun is loaded right now before I. Let me go make some popcorn, get another beer, and reload my gun and put it next to me on the couch just in case.
Anytime you go on a road trip to the country, you're just like, until I see numerous buildings, I'm just going to gun my car and
exactly.
just bolt through this wide open landscape where no one can help me.
Okay, well, yeah, obviously we've got some things to talk about, and this is a chance for us to go into detail because we are going to talk about the good and the bad when it comes to the Poughkeepsie Tapes. And like I said, this is a chance, when we talk about the good, this can be anything, whether it's an overall theme, a specific scene, could be a specific line, whatever. This is our chance to go into as much or as little detail as we want. And as it's become tradition on the show, we're going to start off with Mike. Mike, dig deep and tell me something good about this movie.
When the guy catches the main victim, Cheryl. She wakes up, and in this ultimate bondage scenario, well, this guy shows up with an old plague doctor mask, and I was just thinking, we finally get the answer to the question: what if Eli Roth directed Phantom of the Opera?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, that I'm just going to go into, like, I guess I'm going to put this in the good for some people. I know this is all going to be a matter of opinion. And Jeremy, you've already mentioned, like, kind of talked about it, but the good, this movie really does a great job of creating a very uneasy and foreboding atmosphere. Like, I generally felt creeped out while I was watching this.
I put a lot of that towards the sound design in a lot of places too. Like, there seems to be kind of a steady, uneasy hum throughout it, and when the I'm not going to call it music, but like when the sound really kicks off during some of the more intense snuff film scenes, it's like it makes that, you know, the hairs on your arm stand up a little bit. Like it's freaky in a really good way.
The dissonant tones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's there's not a lot of horror movies that do this for me this time. That's why I said, like, it was kind of refreshing to see something a little different, whether you can call it a good movie or not. But like, I had that tense uneasiness the whole time I was watching this, like that little, I would even call it like a little pain in the pit of my stomach, because I guess because, for lack of a better phrase, it got a little too real.
Yeah, you know that this has been done, like, not all by one person, but all these things have happened to somebody.
Yeah, like, you get a feeling that this is a composite of a lot of serial killer stories, not even stories, but facts, all kind of meshed together. So
a friend of mine described it as, and just to continue with the X-Men metaphor, because that's what I do. A lot of the X-Men villains in the X-Men universe are like, we're going to take all of the powers of the X-Men and combine them into one dude, and then have that one dude attack the X-Men. And that really feels like what they're trying to do with the serial killer, like with him changing his kind of, not his motives, but his changing his style of killing so many times. Like, it's almost like they're building him up to be like a serial killer superhero somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little ridiculous. I know we're in the good part, but like, it's a little ridiculous. Like, they go way over the top with it during the documentary sections and being like, this guy, we had no idea what to do with him. Like, it was a little too much. Dial it down a little bit, y'all.
Yeah.
He's like Legion if he had like a lot of spare time.
Sure, yeah, I like that.
Yep. Good. Okay, so so I think we've all took a swing at the good. Mike?
Oh wait, I've got one good part that I'm curious if either one of you picked up on, because this is my favorite part of the movie.
Sure.
Who do you think is making the documentary? Did you ever ask that question to yourselves? Because, and the second time I watched this, this is, are we spoiler territory? Like, can we?
We'll spoil the shit out of this.
Okay, good. At the very end of the movie, the documentary interviews the first victim that you mentioned, Mike, the Cheryl, and she's been through an extraordinary traumatic several years as she was kidnapped by the superhero serial killer, and as she's being interviewed, she keeps asking somebody, I don't know what you want me to say, and she becomes visibly agitated, and that kind of had me thinking, like, why would she be agitated at this film crew? Because that just seems a little weird. Like, why would they have her do that?
Because some asshole is talking to her with a camera, and she's been dealing with that for months.
But why specifically that question, though? Like, why specifically?
Because her
what
entire
do you want me to
autonomy.
say?
Yeah, her autonomy has been destroyed. She only exists to serve and suffer.
Or the serial killer is making the documentary.
Oh. You see, I never suspected that because this camera actually worked well.
Well, and think about but it doesn't, because during the documentary scenes, there's so many times where the camera will like do a super quick zoom on somebody's hands. They'll do like a weird like rocking thing where everybody's at a 45-degree angle. Like, the camera work in the documentary section is just as bad as the camera work in the snuff film section. And it's really
bitch.
And it's and like there's that one scene where he like walks up to Cheryl's mom and is like just holding a camera in her face when she supposedly recognizes him or whatever. And it's those like, if the personality that they've set up in the movie of this guy who's obsessed with recording himself, he has this huge theatrical side. And at the very end of the movie, the FBI guys, like, we're going to watch the theaters that show this movie because he's going to want to see it. Like, well, no, he's going to want to make it. Like, he's going to want to interview you guys and make you look like chumps. Because how fun is that? That's not fun. I mean, he's a serial killer. It's all bad. But, I mean, like, in the fiction of this universe, like, it's kind of a cool idea. Like, it's a very meta idea. I don't even know if the filmmakers originally intended it this way. I watched a very brief interview with them, and neither one of them seemed to talk about it. So I don't know if this is just me, but it's an idea. And when I rewatched it this time with my wife, we both were as we were watching it, like picking out things and like, yep, nope, look at that. It has to be him. It has to be him making the documentary.
The biggest thing that supports that is because we get to see him yank Cheryl's body out of the grave. That's not part of the official documentary, and yet it's somehow in what's presented to us as a complete documentary.
Yeah.
Well, and look at the snuff films that they're including in a documentary. None of that would ever be in a real documentary, y'all. Like, there would be no way that
you wouldn't actually witness somebody like dying without it being blurred or anything. Yeah, it's.
No. Chris Rock told us about those HBO prison specials. They were pretty graphic.
I'm sure. I just like it just in those like when you think about the idea that they found all of these tapes, but 27 of them were missing, and they were so freaked out about the stuff that was on the rest of the 1,000 tapes that they were, a little nervous about the missing 27. Like, that has to be this stuff where he's actively killing people, like, on the screen. I don't know. Well, like, it's a fun idea. I don't know necessarily it redeems the movie or anything, but it's like the big good part I like, and the part that I think that I enjoy the most while rewatching it.
Probably just, bootleg episodes of the X-Men.
You think so? You think it's just he just wanted to have that X-Men animated series from Pizza Hut that he got?
Yeah, he's not going to share that with the feds. This is for Eddie.
That would explain too that the random 20 seconds of a snuff film that we get right at the end, like at the.
When he stabs that British lady with the, what the hell is that? Just like two.
No. Right at the end of the movie when he's telling after everything else is done, it seems like everything's over. All of a sudden, it cuts to another little clip where he's got another woman tied up, and he's telling her that he'll let her go if she doesn't blink.
Oh yeah, that post-credit scene which offers nothing.
Sequence. Yeah, because why would you ever put that into a documentary? Like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, Jeremy, you may have just accomplished the impossible because you're actually making me want to go watch this movie again to try to look.
You've justified it. You've justified this movie.
Wow. I have looked on the internet, and I've seen this theory posted like in one other place somewhere, but like there's just nobody that ever talks about this at all. And me and my wife just have such a great time talking about it, and like especially when we're rewatching it the last time, when we're not like completely creeped out and a little nervous about it. It's so much fun. Like, man, of course he would be doing this. Like, this would be the thing that you always hear serial killers want to do, which is insert themselves into the investigation or insert themselves in the whole thing. So
that's his magnum opus.
Exactly. Because he got robbed on the 9/11, which is, I mean, if we're going to talk about good things in the movie, like there's one really good gag about 9/11 that I think is hysterical. Like, I don't know if it's meant to be funny, but it is absolutely hysterical. So.
Yeah, that's good, really good point. I never thought of it that way. So yeah, definitely going to have to revisit this and see if I can pick up on anything like that, or besides the points that you pointed out, see if I can pick up on anything else that may suggest this.
And that concludes this week's Theory Time.
Okay, so anyone else have something good to say about this one?
I got one more good.
Sure.
And that is the wonderful twist we get when they have the suspect, they have them imprisoned, they get them executed, and then they find out, oh, there's a completely legitimate reason why his DNA was found in all these girls. Because the son of a bitch stole his sperm that he donated to a bank.
This is such a great reveal. Like, this is like, again, it's ridiculous. It's so dumb because like how, like when they're starting to go through this, like how could you possibly set this up so that the guy has no alibi for any of these 14 or 15 killings? Like, it's a little bit it's a little bit ridiculous. But at the same time, setting up a cop to get legally executed by the state. I'm very anti-death penalty personally, so like this is something that like I would point at and be like, see, we could be wrong even when we think we're right. That's why we shouldn't do this. But regardless of like real life political stuff, him doing this as an act of like, look at me now, like look what I'm capable of, like you're all my puppets or whatever. Like it just goes back to that idea of how theatrical and how much he wants to share his ability with the world.
This is like this is the Joker, but there is no Batman.
Yeah, this is like a badly written Joker. Absolutely. I just and the whole thing that they convict this dude, they kill him. They have all the interviews with the dude's kid, who's like a burnout now because he his whole life has been ruined because his dad is a serial killer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they find out that he wasn't guilty, and they release the thing. And it was the day after 9/11, so like it was on a page like 8. So the dude got robbed of his whole joke, and the kid is like, yeah, and nobody knew my dad was innocent because, and he just deadpans the line. I love it so much. He goes, because of 9/11, and I just it kills me every single time I see it or hear it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, I facepalmed so hard when as soon as he said that. It's like, yeah, like he when the whole headline got pushed back to like the 3rd page. And I'm like, oh god.
Because of 9/11. I mean, it's the dumbest thing.
A 2-line blurb at the bottom. Yeah, nearly 3,000 people dead. Also, cop found innocent.
Oh. Heartbreaking, I tell you, if not disturbingly funny. Okay, so have we covered all the good?
I have.
I think we have squeezed that stone until it bled.
Yeah.
That's literally probably the only good stuff in this movie.
Okay, so that was the good. So, folks, brace yourself because here comes the bad.
Oh, boy.
And I'm going to start off with the bad. And first thing I have to mention, because I noticed this very early on, the acting. When they interviewed anyone, whether they were talking to a police officer or someone who worked in forensics or an FBI officer, anything, some of the acting was cringeworthy. Some of the actors, while they're talking about, they're going through their lines, they're going through whatever it is they need to say, you can actually see smirk starting to form on their face like they're about to break character any moment. It's not everybody. Like, some people did a decent job, but there's some that just, especially some of the coroners, the medical examiners that they spoke to. Good.
There's one that if that's not the way that dude talks, that's just overtly racist too. Like, I hope they didn't make that dude do a bad accent or anything, because if that dude just speaks normal, not to say normal, if that just dude speaks English and they made him do a bad English accent, that's pretty terrible. But
well, let me guess, it was the guy towards the end that was talking about Cheryl's injuries.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, not great at all. Most of the law enforcement people that they interviewed were all terrible. The guy that they would put on like the shitty podium in front of the very much not the Gotham City courthouse prop or whatever, and they had the really dumb cop hat on him. That dude was horrible. I think we need to give a special award to any newscaster that they had footage of, though, because all of the newscasters looked like they were just had never ever seen a news broadcast before.
Mm-hmm.
It was really miserable.
Yeah. Oh my god. There's some I didn't want to say, but I'm glad you mentioned that about the medical examiner towards the end, because that is where I literally cringed. Oh my god, that was so bad. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't even know what to say. Like, the backdrop between the guy giving the police officer giving his statement, the FBI investigator, the one that actually showed like the tapes when they had them all laid on the ground, when he's talking about where his wife saw some of the things he brought home.
Yeah, this poor dude.
Yeah,
she wouldn't let me touch her for a year.
He said that like that was like the worst part of this story.
Yeah, my dude,
Well, for him it
hundreds
was.
of people are dead.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people are dead. Maybe back off your sex game for a little bit.
Hundreds of people are dead, horribly tortured, family shattered, and my wife would let me have sex with her. Okay, so I know you guys must be chomping at the bit, but someone please continue. Tell me something else bad about this.
All right, Jeremy, you're the guest. I'll let you go.
Besides the bad acting, and just shout out to the guy that they have playing Will from The Silence of the Lambs, like the old behavioral scientist guy who got too real for him in the field, so he had to be a teacher or whatever, because that's just weird and not great. The snuff films themselves, while I think they are genuinely creepy, a lot of it is just incredibly unearned. Like, I think that maybe these guys were the filmmakers were thinking that they were having some sort of commentary on like the perspective of a serial killer or something, but it comes across as just gratuitous violence. And there's that line that I don't remember if we were recording when I said this. I kind of apologized for it because I'd forgotten about it. But there's a line where the mother of a young girl that got abducted says something like, who would rape a 10-year-old girl? And it comes out of nowhere, and it's not, nobody does anything with it. It doesn't really even fit in with anything else you see from the serial killer. Like, you don't see him doing anything else like that, right? Like, all we see him is kind of breaking down women and dehumanizing them. It doesn't seem to be child-focused at all, so it ends up just being like a weird line to shock or titillate or, revolt you. And it's, again, just totally not earned. And some of the violence in the movie is very much like that, which is bad, because then you get scenes like where he kidnaps the two. He pretends to be not hitchhiker, but he pretends to be like broke down on the side of the road. And he's got the camera in the back seat, and that whole sequence where he's like, no, and he's kind of off a little bit. He's like, yeah, there's a gas station like right here. That's genuinely creepy, right? Like that was kind of scary. Like imagining being a nice dude and picking up somebody and them having those kind of plans for you. But a lot of it just comes across as completely unearned. The whole scene with the British woman towards the end of the movie, where he does the whole rape thing, like, oh, if you let me rape you, I'll let you go or whatever. Just really, really shocky and bad and not.
Yeah,
just,
you could
just
almost
not good. Let me say that.
Yeah, you could almost sense that the writers were like writing this and thinking like, oh, look how edgy I can be.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that would be
this is totally going to get people all riled up. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about the couple of when he pretended that his car was broke down, because probably the most unrealistic scene, because nobody's going to react like those two did. If I'm driving anywhere and there's a guy standing on the road, with holding a camcorder and just filming everything, and like I'm not even like, no, there's not even a conversation. Like, I wouldn't even get to the point where he would say, hey, do you mind if I keep shooting? This is kind of a movie that I'm doing. I wouldn't even slow down. I would see a guy standing on the side of the road with a camcorder. I'd be like, okay, floor it past this guy because he's a weirdo.
Yep. I'm not gonna interrupt his nature documentary.
I would even assume that he needs help. He's got a video camera. Obviously, if he needs help, he would put down the video camera first. Like, step one when you're fixing your car is to put down the video camera and roll your sleeves up. Like, I totally agree with you. Even though the sequence inside the car really actually genuinely worked for me, why would you ever stop for this dude is a giant question. Is it the 1960s, like before you knew better? No, it's not.
Yeah, so that just the premise, like just the whole thing, like they had to throw in his line, oh, I'm making you mind if I record? I'm making a movie. And even if I got to that point, I'd be like, I'd rather you didn't, actually. You mind turning off the camcorder? I'll give you a ride, but turn the camcorder off. But yeah, okay, so Mike, tell me something you didn't like.
Were all 280 tapes recorded in EP mode and then re-recorded in EP mode? I mean, fix your fucking tracking, damn it.
Hence the episode title, yeah.
Yeah. This is not justified. Like, who had a feature on their camcorder where they can, and before digital, like, assuming that this all took place in the mid-90s, you're recording on a VHS tape, who had the capacity to just have to desaturate your subject while recording? It's like, no, they did. It goes black and white for no reason, and then back to color, and then kind of like some weird artistic thing where, like, everything's black and white except one thing is green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was weird, because one of the first notes that I wrote down when we started seeing, like, the snuff films was his camcorder. Like, he's taping this with a damaged camera. Why is this all distorted? I just didn't understand that. And I literally thought that as time progressed, we started seeing more and more of his recordings, that maybe the recordings would start getting a little better as, he had better cameras available to him.
Yeah, he'd take pride in his work, rob his victims, use their money to buy better equipment.
He starts doing, like, some editing with iVideo.
Pro Tools, there we go.
Some Snapchat filters.
Are you guys making a Poughkeepsie Tapes RPG right now? Is that what's happening? Like, are you guys leveling this dude up?
That's it. Yeah.
Better equipment.
Once you access, like, a certain level of experience points as a serial killer.
Well, yeah, he's got to upgrade that skill tree.
Yeah, but that was weird. Yeah, that was really off-putting.
You got to level up your strangle.
Because, I mean, the first video took place when? It was like the early 90s, right?
Yep, with the little girl who, on occasion, turned into the Hulk.
Yeah.
While he was filming her. It's like, don't make me awkward. You wouldn't like me when I'm awkward.
And, yeah, because, I mean, it's not like a video camera was new technology at the time. I mean, I've seen, like, there's videos of me as a kid recorded by some family members, just like some home movies and things that were early 80s on what should have been crappier cameras. And these people, my family was pretty cheap and didn't really care about me all that much. And the videos still turned out a lot better than these did.
Yeah, you got a bunch of drunk maritime Canadians, and they have better production value than this guy does.
Yeah, the camera stuff all seemed it all works for me in a weird way. I find it like it's kind of annoying. I actually went to find the Blu-ray copy of this, and the Blu-ray copy, I guess it's just being a much clearer transfer or what have you. I think actively,
so you can really see the distortion.
Yeah, but it actively makes it look worse. Like, it makes it look it makes the effect look even more fake, if you can imagine that. On the weird, like, shitty 700 megabyte AVI file that I've had since 2008 or whatever, it just looks like kind of low res and bad. But the effect kind of works for me. But none of it actually makes sense whatsoever. The moment you start thinking about, like, how he would actually be doing any of this, none of it makes sense.
Yeah, especially, like, how they had to have one of the police officers explain how difficult it must have been to do the kidnapping while holding the video camera.
To chloroform a girl.
Yeah, it would be, like, as in it would be difficult, as in it would be impossible.
I love the one cop too explaining that he downloaded a map from MapQuest, and there was only one IP address that accessed that map file on the server, and we cross-referenced the IP address to the ISP, and he goes, "Listen, I'm not very technical," and I'm like, "Dude, you sound like better than my grandma right now. Like, you're not doing bad." But just the idea, I just love the idea that, like, this is such a small town that one IP address accessed the map at 2:45 p.m. on a Saturday or whatever.
Yeah, well, it is in Poughkeepsie, so how many people in the mid-90s were using the internet, so...
Good question.
That's a small haystack.
That is a good question, actually. I never really thought about it like that. It's like, when was this? MapQuest? When did I start using MapQuest? How long ago was that?
I remember MapQuest being because I was doing, I'm a computer guy by trade, and I was doing, like, cable, DSL, like when high-speed internet was first getting started, and, like, every day I would get my tickets of all of the places I would be going to install T1 lines or DSL or whatever, and I would go to MapQuest and, like, build my route and print it out on a printer, like, because that was what we did. Like, we didn't have GPSs or anything. Like, we just had MapQuest.
Oh yeah.
So that had to be like 99. But I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know when MapQuest started.
I've driven places with, like, a pile of papers with me where I printed out MapQuest, like a lot, much later than 99. I'll just say that. That was fun. You know, whoever's driving is like listening to the person in the passenger seat just read the directions to them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. That took me back. MapQuest. Wow.
Well, MapQuest was actually a company founded in 1967, but I think it came out in 1994.
Oh wow.
This is like finding out Nintendo's been around since the 1800s, right? You're like, what the fuck? My whole life is a lie.
Oh wait, no, the service was instituted in 1996, but I guess they started on it in 1994.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Oh yeah, Nintendo's, like, to find out that they ran like brothels in the 60s was fantastic. It's like, yeah, we had our fingers in everything. Well, they called them love hotels. It's like hourly hotels. Great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the
definitely,
best,
sometimes I just need a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day to get by.
well, apparently there's pictures of people sleeping on the job. So, like, if the people are so overworked they do need to nap in the middle of the day, that would be like a really expensive solution. But yeah, and some of the biggest clients were the guys that own the damn hotels.
Of course.
Any other bad points?
Yeah, I think the main things for me were like the acting and just the quality of the actual snuff films. It just seemed like weird that, you know, in a 12-year, 13-year span, whatever this was, we were like the length of time we were watching these tapes, that it was all done on the same camera, and that just seemed odd to me. But yeah, Jeremy, do you have anything else for the bad?
No, I'm good on bad.
I only have one more, and that is the head in the woman's belly was great, but it's only great if you have a pause button, because one of the most chilling and horrifying special effects they've put in is only on screen for 1 second before they end up talking about it more than actually showing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that pissed me off, because, you know, you look down and I just thought, oh, her stomach's bleeding, and then they're talking about, oh, the head, and I'm like, wait, what? So if you're in the theater, fuck you. Like, you just have to be like, oh, I guess there was a head in there.
Yeah, I didn't even, honestly, with that scene, I didn't even notice that until they said it afterwards. You're talking about it, and I had to go back and watch that scene again. So, yeah, good point. And it didn't look bad. Like, I've seen a lot worse when it came to, like, actual prosthetics or practical effects.
Yeah, that's why it's bad, because it was a good effect. It was chilling. It made a point. It's one of the few things it did earn to let you know, like, how fucked up this guy is. Mm-hmm. And they just whip it away from you, and they'll be like, yeah, that happened. Like, you went to the props guy, and you made this shit real. Like, you know, revel in your work. Like, do...
But then again, you know, we've mentioned on the show before, we've watched movies where they've come up with a good effect or a semi-good prosthetic or practical effect, and they've really milked it, where they've kept it on screen way too long and shown it from different angles.
Or like slow motion, where someone's just like whipping around, like screaming, but it's an annoying slow motion.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they wanted to avoid that. Hey, there you go. Maybe they were just trying to avoid like a horror movie trope with that.
With gross overcompensation.
Yeah. Jeez, it's feast or famine. You can't get anything in the middle.
Hey, instead of lingering on the effect, why don't we just not show it at all? How awesome is that?
And let's get some of our real bad actors that we've hired to talk about it in detail.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm all out of bads now.
Yeah, and so usually what we do after the good and the bad, we've been doing it for a little while anyway, since we watched a movie called Pieces. We added a category that we basically call What the Fuck. It's a category where we add in anything that, any scene or any line, whatever the case is, that kind of defies explanation. Something that left us completely baffled. We had no idea what we just watched. I didn't find anything for this movie because this movie kind of was a whole what the fuck.
Yeah, the entire movie.
But not in a way that kind of suits our definition of what the fuck. So I really had nothing for this category. I didn't know what to say. There were some scenes that were kind of shocking, but I mean, you're talking about a documentary that's primarily made of snuff films, so of course there's going to be some shocking stuff. Cheryl's missing hand caught me off guard. I didn't see that coming.
That was some pretty terrible CGI too. Like the fuzz
that was.
Oh yeah, you could see the fuzz.
I really liked her acting. I will say that. Like she's probably the best part of the movie.
Definitely,
overall.
she was the one that in this movie that had the acting chops for sure.
But yeah, that hand effect was super bad. I don't really have a what the fuck either. I guess my what the fuck would have been, that the serial killer was actually the person making the documentary. I probably should have saved that, but I wanted to get into that fast so that we could talk about it. So.
We haven't given theory time an appropriate place in our lineup. It just kind of happens.
You didn't want to be laying in bed tonight, like after recording, and thinking, and all of a sudden shoot up, like straight up, and I forgot to tell him about my theory.
We forgot about Kevin and the theory.
Quick, get on Skype. We got to re-record the whole thing.
Yeah, not like we've ever done that before, right?
Oh yeah. My only what the fuck is the post-credit scene. Like, who is this woman? What did he kill her with? And what was really the point? Usually when there's a stinger at the end of a movie, it's to address either somebody who's been like abandoned midway through the plot and be like, oh yeah, well, they got out, they're still kicking. Or, even in the Avengers, it's like they mentioned getting a shawarma and now they're having a shawarma. Like, it's usually a stinger as a callback or addressing a point. This one is just, what? Why?
Yeah, it doesn't serve much of a purpose besides to have one. And it really feels like they filmed some stuff and then like this didn't fit into the main part of the movie, right? Like they just didn't have any room for this. Like in one of my podcasts, I always put all of our outtakes at the end, and that's just funny dumb stuff that we were saying during the cast that didn't quite like fit into the rhythm of the show. So all that stuff gets at the end, and that's what this feels like. Is like, we couldn't figure out where to place this, and we genuinely like it enough that we want people to see it. So. Did you guys do the thing, by the way? Because he tells her, like, I'll let you live as long as you don't blink, and then you guys stare at her in the eyes and, like, try not to blink yourself. So you could do that.
Yeah. Literally, I'm like, how long can I go without blinking?
Yeah, put yourself in that position, I think that was, again, it's just all shock value, right? Like, it's all just like, I think this is edgy and cool, and we're fresh out of film school, and we're going to be able to do this.
Yeah, this was basically, like, the worst version of one of the best episodes of Doctor Who. Like, you'll be fine as long as you don't blink.
Nice.
Except, it's just like, he's like the worst version of the Joker, the worst version of the Stone Angels from Doctor Who, the worst version of Saw or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
So it was difficult. Yeah, it's like, a lot of movies are difficult to come up with, like, a literal what the fuck part, but this one was particularly hard because there was nothing confusing about it so much. It's just like anything that was really confusing didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Were really more of the bad category, not the confusing category. So it was difficult, but
yeah. And you think if they were going to have a stinger, that it would be what he did with the body afterwards, what he did with Cheryl's corpse. Like if there's any resolution or stinger, you think it would have been that.
Mm-hmm. See him like doing like a whole like weekend at Bernie's type of thing, like taking her around vacation and stuff, and going to the beach, hanging out at restaurants.
Poughkeepsie Tapes #2 at the beach.
Weekend at Cheryl's
with Cheryl and the Plague Doctor. Cheryl and the Plague Doctor, by the way, is my ska band, in case you guys were curious.
If you want to cart around this cadaver, just go ahead now. Oh
my god. Yeah, so that's that was it. So that's the good, the bad, and the WTF. And for the next segment, Mike, I don't know what to say. I really don't know what you're going to have for us this time around, because I don't know if I would call any of these good, but I'm going to let you decide. I'll let you go with it. You do your thing.
Yeah, it's going to get a little real on this week's kill of the week. In so many, well, I would say all, except now that no longer applies. But usually in horror movies, a kill, it's built up to, there's some suspense, there's some justification, or it's just like, oh shit, that's amazing. But all of these were just so real. I never felt any of that joy of like, it built up to this and now we've got it. Or, this person's like met their end, so, we're not going to see them later on. But a lot of these kills are implied, and the ones we do get to see are just so unwarranted. It's like killing just for the sake of killing rather than contributing anything to the movie. But with that being said, I guess I got to go with the British lady who is slowly told, like, yeah, by the way, you just walked into a big fat old trap. And she just gets desperate, and, none of this feels entertaining, but I guess I gotta pick something. So he walks up to her in, like, this shitty Wolverine cosplay, where he's got these spikes, these steel rods, bound to his fingers with, what are those fasteners that you tighten with a screwdriver?
Like hose clamps?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me, anyway.
Oh, it definitely was, because I could see the little spaces in between. Yeah, so he's got little steel rods as hose clamps, like, tied to hose, or welded to hose clamps to his fingers. And he, like, creepily walks up to her with this one mask facing one way, but then when he stands up, we realize he's got two masks on. So it's definitely the most bizarre and slow. Like, he jams those things into her neck, and you can just see blood gushing out of her, and I guess it's like the most prominent kill we actually see, since most of them are implied or off screen.
Yeah.
Was there any ones that were on screen? Oh, yeah, I guess, like, where Cheryl was made to kill somebody, but no, this one was, like, the chief disturbing full kill.
Yeah. And actually, despite, like, the quality of the film and everything during this, wasn't a bad kill, really. Like, it was slow, definitely painful. What you saw happen is what I would think would happen if you did this to somebody. So, all in all, not bad. That was actually a good pick.
Yeah, that's probably one of the creepier scenes in the movie, just from like, it's the weirdest that dude is in this movie, that we see him be. Like, that's the summation of, like, his theatricality and his just total self-absorption is, this chick can't even see him, and he's just being weird for the camera so he can watch it later.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I really thought when he pulled out those pig stickers that he was going to call her Bub. You can't fool me, Mystique.
Oh, wow. So, guys, that is our coverage of the Poughkeepsie Tapes. Hope you enjoyed that. I would recommend checking it out just to satisfy your curiosity. Be prepared. Like, listen to what we had to describe so you know what you're in for. Be prepared for that. But definitely, I would check it out. And thanks, Jeremy, for recommending this one.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's really, like, this movie does have, like, quite a bit of a cult following, so there's a lot of people that like this. But what did you think of what we had to say about this movie? Have you seen it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? We want to know about it. You got several ways of getting in contact with us. You can email us at graveyardshiftpod@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter at GYS_horrorpod, and you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/thegraveyardshiftpod. Those are the best ways. If you have a movie you'd like us to cover on the show, that's the best way of doing it. Send your suggestion to either way. And if you're feeling especially generous, you can help with the upkeep and promotion of the show by going to www.patreon.com/graveyard. For as little as $1 a month, you help out the show with some of the costs of running it. Plus, you get access to some pretty cool Patreon-exclusive bonus content. Each month, we throw up a Patreon-exclusive episode, and we do those episodes a little different than what we do for the regular feed, so check those out. But of course, we understand not everybody has the money to give us money, but you can still help us out a ton. Whichever way you're finding the show and listening to it, there's usually some kind of rating and reviewing system, so we would certainly appreciate that. Rate, review, subscribe. And the best way to help us out, actually, just keep doing like you're doing. You're finding the show somehow, just listen to us every week. Share us on your social media or by word of mouth. You know someone that thinks you would like to listen to a couple of guys talk about horror movies, then let them know about us. We greatly appreciate it. Once again, I want to thank our guest, Jeremy. And Jeremy, if somebody wanted to check out any one of the podcasts that you're doing or find out more about you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, thank you first off for having me. This was a blast. I'd love to talk about horror movies and movies in general, but this was a great pleasure to talk about this weird, bad, awful, great movie. If you want to follow me, the easiest place to talk to me is on Twitter. I am at JG Greer. I swear I retweet all of my podcasts. I have 3 or 4 regular podcasts. I do Days of Future Cast, which is the X-Men animated series that we kind of made fun of the entire time. There's Monster of the Week, which is a episode by episode breakdown of the TV show Supernatural. So if you like your dudes hunky and hunting ghost, then tune into monsteroftheweek.cool. It's a blast. We have a lot of fun on that show talking about these dorky hunks that we love so much. And then I have a podcast. It's an interview podcast about a video game series called Dark Souls and Bloodborne. It's called Don't Give Up Skeleton. That is like I said, just an interview podcast. It's me and a different guest every week. We talk about their experiences with the Souls games. It could be like super famous people from the Souls community, like your JFS or your Aegons of Ostoras, to people that I just kind of randomly met, and they all have super interesting stories. So go check that out at don'tgiveupskeleton.com. And then me and my wife are regular guests on Radio Free Midworld, which is another podcast on the Duckfeed TV network about Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. So if you were into The Dark Tower, like I have been since I was 10 years old, then you'll probably like that podcast. We're breaking it down chapter by chapter. We're covering all of the extra meta material that Stephen King has written and eventually tied into The Dark Tower. So we just finished Wizards and Glass. Between Wizards and Glass and the 5th book, which is Wolves of the Calla, we're covering Desperation, we're covering Went Through the Keyhole, like a bunch of extra Stephen King stuff. So that's all at radiofreemidworld.com. Sorry that this admin section was longer than the actual podcast. I apologize.
No, that the Dark Tower podcast, I'm there. I'm definitely going to be checking that one out for sure. So that's great. Good. I'm going to get the all those links on the show notes for this episode. So everyone, you're listening, you can check out the show notes to get connected to everything that Jeremy just mentioned. And Mike, if somebody wanted to hear more of you, because there's some people that just cannot get enough of the mic, how could they go about doing that?
You can check out the Playing with Power podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, as well as playingwithpowerpodcast.com, where you will hear me and 2 American friends read and discuss each and every issue of Nintendo Power, first to last, front to back. We will be talking about every single page inside, unless it's boring, in which case you will hear so many terrible things that one of us found on Reddit.
Awesome. Yeah, if you're a fan of old Nintendo games, or you had a subscription to Nintendo Power back in the day like I did, check it out. I think you're going to enjoy it. So thanks again to our guest, Jeremy. Mike, thank you again for just everything that you do. And thank you for welcome. Listening. Please come back and join us again next time on The Graveyard Shift. Ha 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 ha